meaning that for the next 2 to 3 years, we're probably going to experience hard winters, severe winters in the terms of cold, colder than usual. Let's therefore look at this attempt by the U.S. Joint Command under the infamous Mad Dog Mathis to reinstitute the peak oil fraud. We had problems in the 9/11 truth movement. There were a couple of people who seemed to think that peak oil was more important as a theme than 9/11 truth. So they wanted 9/11 truth and peak oil. Sorry, these do not mix. And indeed, the attempt to bring them in was essentially providing a kind of plausible pretext in the minds of the average person why 9/11 might have been carried out. Well, it's because the oil was diminishing. Well, no, this is simply nonsense. So here's what we have. There's a report from the U.S. Joint Command, which deals with peak oil. And this, of course, the Joint Command is the Special Forces Command. In other words, the heart of that is Special Forces, the people who are expert in creating counter-gangs in the Kitsonian sense around the world who go out and do that. And now we're hearing it from General Mad Dog Mathis, that humanitarian. He's the humanitarian from Task Force Ripper and the humanitarian from the Fallujah massacres in Iraq. He's now coming forward with the idea that within a couple of years, and let's see exactly when, by 2012, there will be no oil surplus, no surplus production left in the world. And again, it's a very, very transparent attempt to now fill the void left by the wide discrediting of the global warming fraud as a result of the East Anglian emails and other distortions and lies and suppression of evidence that were brought in. So we're told that within 2 years there will be no surplus production, and that by the year 2015 there will be a 10 million barrel a day shortfall by 2015. Now, it's there's so much to say about this, one hardly knows where to begin. This is largely this Malthusian tendency. It's very strong in Great Britain, and the reason that it's coming out now, of course, is to fill the gap left by global warming. What's going on in Britain is that we've got agitation by this guy, Sir Richard Branson of Virgin Atlantic, a wealthy elitist, a Malthusian fanatic, somebody with feudal aristocratic overtones or pretensions for himself. And he has created something called the UK Industry Task Force on Peak Oil and Energy Security. United Kingdom Industry Task Force for Peak Oil and Energy Security. He is looking for peak oil in 2015. And what should be done? Well, you guessed it. Green jobs, green transport, the green revolution, alternative technologies. If you seriously believe this, for Great Britain, you should be calling for 20 to 30 modern nuclear reactors to be started immediately, to push aside the red tape and bureaucratic obstructionism that have been imposed by various laws, and to build these things on an emergency basis. But notice, these rich elitist oligarchs don't say that. They say green jobs, green transport, green revolution. And it's just nonsense. Notice also Obama. When Obama announced that he was opening up the possible drilling off the coast of Virginia, he at the same time reiterated that the entire Pacific coast of the United States and the entire coast of Alaska is going to be shut down permanently. How could you take seriously any worry about the future production of oil coming from the Obama regime when they have basically said that the entire Pacific coast and the entire coast of Alaska is going to remain taboo and off limits? Now, the new oil fields coming online, well, there's one in Brazil one new oil field in Brazil, which is important because this is subsalt. This is offshore and underneath a layer of salt. The Chinese are eagerly proceeding to develop this. They are not troubled by skepticism, pessimism. They need oil, and they're going to get it. In the case of Uganda in Africa, you have actually a rivalry between China and India in this Lake Albert Basin to see who is going to be able to develop it. And then you have Oman at the bottom of the Arabian Peninsula. Now, obviously, in a depression like today, there are many forms of economic activity which are profitable intrinsically, but for the moment they may not seem to be. So therefore, you've got to push ahead essentially with the government program, because the private sector could do these things, but they don't do them. And if they don't do them, somebody's got to do them, and therefore it falls to government by default to do it. There's also the question of Alaska, and we're told that Arctic Alaska is an area where we have about, I think it's 70 billion barrels, 90 billion barrels. The largest reserves now in the United States are in Arctic Alaska, 90 billion barrels. We have the Amerasia Basin, which is also in that part of the world, and the East Greenland Rift. So a very large part of oil stocks are located around the polar regions, but Alaska in the lead. So this area in Alaska, the 90 billion barrels, has been essentially locked down by Obama. In terms of the consummation of resources, just if people want to argue this, the statistics are available for how many years the known resources of different parts of the world will last if they continue to be consumed at the present yearly rate. And here what do we find? Saudi Arabia, 72 years of reserves for production at the current rate. Iran, 95 years of production at the current rate. Iraq, 150 years at the current rate. Kuwait, 110 years at the current rate. Venezuela, 88 years at the current rate. An average of the top 17 countries by oil reserves, 54 years of reserves. Now, of course, this is all cartelized. OPEC is a cartel. Even worse than OPEC, of course, is the Seven Sisters cabal. Fewer sisters these days because of mergers, but the Anglo-American oil cabal is really the one to watch. So there is a mass of oil, and the question is the technology to get it out and the political will to get it out. But this is not forthcoming. Now, the news is we have Lord Hunt, who is the British energy minister, is meeting with Sir Richard Branson and the other industrialists to deal with their fears of peak oil. It's the British Department of Energy and Climate Change. And they're holding, Lord Hunt is meeting with Sir Richard Branson and his acolytes in this cabal for private, behind closed-door talks about the energy, at the Energy Institute, to talk about the future of peak oil. Now, this, of course, is therefore something the British have done before. We have Mr. Jevons back in the 19th century. At the end of the American Civil War, the leading British economist was Jevons. And he essentially predicted peak coal in 1865. The world's running out of coal, or at least the British Isles were running out of coal in 1865. And again, it's just the same fraud that we've seen again and again and again. Back in a minute.